fun of me also watching TV in the background. So this is going to be a great test for this microphone. Basically, what we're going to do today is continue from where we left off last time, where we were working on, oh, great, my keyboard shortcuts don't work. So we were working on this NextJS refactoring of a Gatsby app that I built last year, where it's the app that I use to get feedback on my newsletters, my blogs, and all sorts of other things. We got to the point where we have dynamically generated pages with the correct data. When you come to a particular UUID, it goes to my serverless server, which sounds weird. It goes to my serverless Lambda, talks to a database, gets back some data, and then creates a page for you. The problem with that is that the pages are now loading way slower than they are for in the Gatsby version because they're not pre-generated. And we still need to add a bunch of actual functionality like registering the vote that happened or detecting whether it's a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I'm also going to try to make that work without changing the URLs so that I don't have to go through all of my content over the last however long I've been using this and having to switch stuff. So, because that would be bad. So what we're going to try to do today is, let's see. So I'm going to be doing less switching of my camera today because my shortcuts aren't working. No idea why. So what we're going to do today is try to combine get server-side props for server-side generation, which is what Next.js uses, with get static props and get static paths. I think that's what it's called. We're going to try to pre-generate the actual page so that it's a static page, but then use get server-side props to register the actual vote while the page is being loaded. I have no idea if this is something Next.js supports, like combining SSR and SSG, but we're going to try. And, Code with Swizz episodes are all about experimentation. So we're going to go for about 45 minutes or so because I have a lot of other work to do today. And let's get started. Right. Keyboard shortcuts. Oh, and if you're in the chat room, please say hi. That way I know you're there and I don't feel like I'm talking to myself like a weirdo. Although I am a bit of a weirdo and it's fine. So we're gonna, hey, Eric Hodges. Cool, how are you doing this afternoon? So we're gonna take this get server-side props thing and we're using Apollo. We're going to change that to a function. I'm still putting everything in these same functions or in the same file, not really caring about how messy or terrible the code base becomes. We can clean all of that up later. So we're gonna rename this stuff into function get widgets, and widgets are hey Osama, how are you doing today? So get widgets is a function that fetches all widgets from DB. A widget is on a type of thumbs up, down, vote thingy. Sweet. Okay, so Osama is asking about the strengths of Gatsby versus the strengths of Next.js. I'm doing great, Osama. So that is actually a really good question. Typically, what I like to say is that I would use Next.js when I'm building something, or well, now that I've looked into Next.js more. So Next.js seems like a better fit for web apps where you have a little bit more dynamicness and more on-demand generation of content. Gatsby is better when you have websites where it's really important that for every page on your website, you have really great time to first byte and really great performance. But Gatsby ends up having the downside of slower deploys, whereas Next.js tends to be deployed faster. So it's kind of about balancing whether you want, it mostly depends on what kind of thing you're building, actually. So yeah. I feel like Gatsby is still better for websites and oh wow, I am blanking out. And Next.js is better for web apps. That's kind of roughly how I would go about it. So we're getting the widgets. We're going to return data.allWidget to get our list of widgets to generate pages for. And then we're going to change get server-side props. We're going to keep it for now. It's going to return empty props, and we're going to add export async function get static props, which is going to, this is going to generate the static props for each widget and for each vote page. Static props about the widget you're voting on. And this is going, let's hide the server-side props. And I think the way this needs to work is get static paths. I know get static paths is required. I forgot how get static props works. So I'm going to look that up. We're going to go to nextjs.org, is it? Yes. So nextjs.org, search the docs for get static props because I keep forgetting the API. I think I just returned props. Yep. Props for a particular context, params, there we go. So I'm gonna get the context and that context, actually, let's just do it like this. We get the params and we have so we create, yes. So we have the actual ID, which is called the widget ID. So we take widget ID out of params, and then we can say const widgets equals await get widgets, right? Yep. And then we filter that to our specific widget. And that's because I don't have an API yet for getting data about a specific widget. I only made an API to get data about all of the widgets. And I'm trying to focus on just changing to Next.js without changing anything on the server, which is supposed to be what GraphQL is good at. So we're kind of testing that theory as well. So we should now return props with the correct widget. So that should now be able to generate the page. Now we need to pre-populate static paths because you'll see that we get an error saying, hey, this is a dynamic page, but it's being statically generated. So I don't know how to generate the URL for you because you haven't specified what exists. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to look at get static paths, which is, nope. How does that work? I think we just need to return. It's been a while since well, it hasn't been that long. I just want to make sure. So we are going to generate the paths. Great. So here we're going to say export async get static paths. And this needs to be a function. Function get static paths. Generate static pages for each per widget. Yeah, for static vote pages for each widget type in DB, something like that. And then we say fallback set the I forget what the fallback does. Okay, or rather I can't remember it right now. So we're going to say const widgets equals await get widgets. That gives us a list of all of them. And we're going to return paths are going to be widgets.map. For each one, we get the widget itself. And that widget is going to say, we need to return, or actually we can just do it this way. Pop, and we're going to return the params of, so params are going to be, let's see. Yep, we should be able to populate the widget ID here with, we have the widget ID in each widget. Widget.widget ID. So this should now generate pages. Now let's see if that works. If I go here, oh, we need to specify the fallback. So I'm gonna say, no, not there, but here. We're gonna say fallback is, let's say false. What does the fallback section do again? Keep forgetting that. Fallback false is false, then any paths not returned by static paths will result in a 404. That's great. That's what we want. So what are we getting? Key must be returned by get static paths, which it is, but not in the right place. It needs to go down here. Let's try restarting. It seems like everything's getting confused. So we're getting a list of paths and we get the fallback. Let's see if this generates the pages for us. Compiled successfully. So we should now get a page here. And now that's saying that data is not defined, which is true because data is now widgets. So we should now get that part. Okay. So this seems to be working faster. Cool. Okay. So we've got that working. We now have a, the page is still slow. So what would be cool is if we can move. So one thing that I did in, let me show you in Gatsby here is that everything is all of the props that you need for generating the actual page. So who the person is, what you're voting on, the series of questions, stuff like that is baked into the initial DOM load. So the data is baked in. I'm not currently doing that with NextJS. I'm only giving it the widget ID params. So let's try. Does NextJS let us bake in the actual props? Which I think it does. Let's see. Get static props. I'm just trying to look for what the API is. Use get static props. Come on, show it to me. Show me the API. What is get static props returning? There we go. So params contains the route parameters for pages using dynamic routes. Preview is true. Preview data locale default locale. Get static props should. Oh, okay. We can also. Oh, okay. No, it can. So when we return here the props. Oh, okay. So what I think is happening is that get static props is supposed to only run on the first time we request a page. Let's try that. So I'm gonna add console log here. Getting static props. Now let's see if my assumption is correct. So this is compiled successfully. I'm running it. We are getting static props. So that's one of the differences between NextJS and Gatsby is that NextJS creates static props on demand, but I think that in production this would get cached. I guess we'll see when we try to deploy this, what happens. Okay, so we're getting the props now, and we're getting everything else. We're gonna have to deal with the user ID and widget ID later. So now the next step, we're going to try to get to use get server side props to hook into the actual vote. Oh, I also need to figure out how can we, because if you look at how the pages currently work, I can go on my blog and I'll click on, let's say, on this one. If you, where is it? Okay, so if you click thumbs up, that should, oh, okay, so that's the bug. So I have a bug right now where it's incorrectly getting URLs of my articles. That's a different issue. But you can see here that the URL is the ID of the widget and then thumbs up or thumbs down. I need to figure out how to put that on Next.js. So what I'm gonna try to do is see if I can have, let's look at the Next.js routing. I need to look up for dynamic routes. Can I encode stuff in the URL, like two parameters in the same URL? PID comment. Okay. Multiple dynamic route segments work the same way. The page that will match the route blah and its query object will be okay. But where do I actually put that? Uh-huh. Okay. We can name them like this. Huh. Get the query objects are as follows. Slug blah. Page post slug will match a bunch of stuff. Okay. So that's what we can do. We are going to let's see if we can move this to be let's do make dir pages. We're going to make dir widget ID, and then no matches found. So that's one of the issues I have with Gatsby using square bracket file names, is that they really don't play well with command line tools. And then we move the current widget ID page to pages/widget ID, and I called that down here. I called it the vote type. In my Gatsby project, it was called the vote type. So we're going to move that to vote type.js. Yes, okay. Escape. Bam. So now we can go to the vote type, and we're gonna have two sets of static routes that we're gonna create. So this is going to, the vote page is now going to get the widget. It's not gonna have the widget ID here, or I guess it can. Doesn't matter as much, but we are gonna get the vote type now. So we're going to here where we're creating this stuff, then we're going to create the vote type for, let's say, thumbs up. Oh, and we need to create the thumbs down as well. So, which means, that is so annoying. Okay, so we need to turn this into a little helper function. And say function make paths for the vote type, and they're going to return widgets map vote type, like that, right? What am I still doing wrong? Okay, so that works. So now we say we are getting make paths for thumbs up, and we are making paths for thumbs down. Those were my two vote types, right? Thumbs up and thumbs down. We're now creating the pages for it. In theory, we're now in advance creating all of those pages, or at least we're telling Next.js that those are paths that exist. So now let's try if that actually works. I'm going to restart Next.js. Now that I've moved everything, yarn dev. Let's see if it figures it out. So it's starting. It should be, while it was starting, it was supposed to read stuff. It gets a 404 error because we said that there's no fallback, which was on purpose. So now if I go to thumbs up, I get a nice error. Nice. Because now my imports are wrong. So I have to do this. And now it's going to work. No. Yes. Compiled successfully. Mac paths is not defined. What did I do? Mac paths. It's called make paths. So I think this is acting differently in a in this context. Now, why is is it not reading the params correctly? Let's see. So we should be getting the vote type from, right, we need to use the router. So we're gonna go with use router, next router, and the use router is gonna give us info. So here in the vote page, we're gonna say, that's kind of annoying because you would hope that it would bake everything in. Let's do it like this. So we get the vote type from params, right? Yes, we should. So we can put it in here and then we don't have to read it from the URL. It's baked in as data, right? Is it? Identifier vote type has already been declared. Yes, so we have to change that. We're no longer getting that as part of the widget data. Cool. Yay. Okay, so now NextJS is recognizing thumbs up and thumbs down URLs. That works. Awesome. Next step is, what is the next step? Now we have to actually register the vote. And for that, we're going to try using get server-side props. The reason I'm using server-side props for that is because my understanding right now, that's part of what we're testing today. My understanding is that get static props runs only once and then gets cached indefinitely, whereas get server-side props runs every time you're requesting a page. So that should mean that you are able to hook into the actual page load. So we're gonna try that. Let's see what happens. First, we're gonna try if both of them even run. So we get params, widget ID and vote type, and you cannot use get static props or get static paths with get server-side props. That's annoying. Okay. So when does this shit run? So you cannot use both, which is frustrating. Because then what's the point? Let's see. What does it say here about get static props? If you export an async function called get static props, NextJS will pre-render this page at build time using the props returned by get static props. The context parameter is an object. Yes, yes, yes. Get static props should return an object with the props. It should an optional amount in seconds after which a page regeneration can occur and are not found. A redirect, that's cool. You can use, will not be bundled for the client side. You can write server-side code directly in get static props. This includes reading from the file system or a database. You should not use fetch. Okay. So that kind of puts a damper in things. So it looks like we are gonna have to use get server-side props after all. We won't be able to mix both of them, which is kind of frustrating because it would be really cool to pre-generate these pages so that they load faster. But I guess this will do. Okay, so let's go back to get server-side props then. That's annoying. But at least we are able to oh, and then we don't need get static paths either because we cannot generate the paths in advance. Whatever. That's kind of annoying. Okay, so get static props, we don't need that. Return props, widget, and vote type. So we're gonna say that this is dynamically get props on every page load, and then use this opportunity to save the vote. Okay, so now that we're doing this, we can actually save the vote. I'm gonna go back to my Gatsby project and hopefully be able to just copy paste that out. So front-end source pages, vote.js. Here we have, see, this is what the original problem I started solving by going with, by trying to refactor this into Next.js, is that with Gatsby, we had pages that loaded super fast, but people didn't always wait to save their vote, which happened on page load and could lead to problems. So we're now going to try to do this with, what is this? What am I using the storage key for? That's okay. We can deal with that later. But basically, we're going to try to just use the vote on save the vote on the backend or while the page is being generated. So we're going to go here in get server side props. We're gonna params get joy is instance of joy. So we're going to do what? While we can get the widgets. We can also const save vote and say, let's do these two in parallel. We can let's save the vote first. Well, so we're going to create a function. We're going to await that function called save vote with the params, and we're going to go up here where we do the thing. Saves users vote to the database, and this is going to be async function save vote, which is going to get, actually, let's see, we are going to need, what is all the data that we need to make this happen? We need the user ID, the widget ID, whether it's a thumbs up, thumbs down, and who the voter is. But we don't have the user ID baked into the thing. So this is getting quite tricky here. I'm getting lost in what we're doing. Okay, let's try first saving the vote. So to save the vote, we're gonna need, and the reason we need both the user ID who owns the widget and the widget ID is because of how the keys are stored on the backend. Like the way the GraphQL schema works is not the best. So we're going to take this, save vote, and it's a mutation. It's a Apollo mutation. So what we can do here is use the Apollo client, which should be fine. And we're going to use that client to say const data equals await client.mutation, client.mutate, and then we need mutation options, which are what? We're gonna need the actual mutation, won't we? Let's see. Mutation options, where are you? Mutation options. We need the actual mutation, and I think that's it. So let's see. The mutation is going to be GQL, blah, and I'm going to copy the mutation from here. Mutation widget vote is the actual vote. Bam. So we need the user ID, the blah, and then I'm going to look up the Apollo client. Apollo client, what's this called? Apollo client docs, and we're gonna look at the mutations, not what, why Android? Mutations. Okay. Client React or no? Okay. So we go here and look at API core Apollo client. How do we do mutations? Mutation, mutate. Oh yeah, it was mutate. So. So is the document node, whatever. Where do we put variables? Up update queries, subscribe. Where do I put variables for this stuff? Context to be passed to the link execution chain. No, I don't need that. Error policy, fetch policy, mutation, GraphQL tag. Where do the variables go? Does anyone know? Variables. Aha, they just go next to the mutation. Cool. So our variables are going to be, we're gonna need the user ID, the widget ID, we're gonna need whether this is thumbs up or thumbs down. That is also, that's another way that the way I designed this API a year ago is, you know, not the best, but that's how you learn. Cool. Have a good one, Osama. I hope you enjoyed this. So thumbs up, thumbs down. That was a terrible decision for how to make, how to save that data. And we have who the voter is and the actual instance of Joy, which is what I've been using, what I've actually been using to, what was I gonna say? To look at what people are voting on. So now how do we get this? I'm just gonna assume this worked. We're gonna be optimistic about it. User ID is not defined. Yes, I know a bunch of things are not defined because this is frustrating. We need to fetch the widgets, then we need to save the vote after we have data about the widget. So we're going to pass in the user ID is going to come from widget.userid. Then we have the widget ID. We said we also need, let's pass in the vote type. And how are we gonna get the voter? So the way I had it before, the voter is a potential query param, right? Where does the voter come from? Voter is params get voter, and instance of Joy params get. Params come from the URL search params. This is something that is better in NextJS than it was in Gatsby because NextJS has the routing. It has better integration with the routing. So we're going to get the router, which also comes in params, I think. So let's see, get server side props, get server side props. If we look at the params, one of them is the router. Right? No, query, the query string. Yes, cool. So we get the params and we get the query. And we're going to console log the query. Excuse me. So the query, we're gonna console log this shit, console log query, and we're going to comment this out for now and see if we can run it just so that we can see what the query ends up looking like. So we say voter is, let's use me, and instance of Joy equals live code vote test, right? So we get, oh nice, it's parsed for us. That's amazing. So we're gonna use the query and we say const voter and instance of Joy comes from the query pdp, and then we pass that in here. So we have the voter and the instance of Joy. That's the actual thing that you're voting on, in like the specific one. So here we then have all of this stuff, and it would be nice if I was using TypeScript for this, but I'm not. Maybe that can be another series of streams. So we're going to say user ID, widget ID, vote type, voter, instance of Joy, right? Instance of Joy, like that, and then we say const thumbs up equals vote type is thumbs up and thumbs down equals vote. Actually, let's just do it this way. Vote type. Come on. Vote type thumbs up. That goes down here. Thumbs up. Whether vote type is thumbs up, otherwise thumbs down. This is something I should really fix. Cool. So we should now have this saving data to my DynamoDB in theory. So I'm going to, oh, I can't see the network stuff here, but let's see. I'm running this. It made 2 requests to the backend. One was to actually save the vote. One was to get metadata to show on the page. And this is not optimal. We should definitely optimize this later. Oh, nice. We're down to 2 people actually watching. I know this is kind of in the weeds, but it's a nice way to experiment and play around with stuff. So we go into the AWS console. I'm going to look at DynamoDB just to see if whether the stuff is actually being saved. So go into, I think it's this one, vote dev blah, and no, is it this one? So we're going to let's see, this is what we were voting on. So let's hope that that's in here. I'm going to go from widget ID string equals that, and let's find the things. And we have a vote from today. Yes, live code vote test. Awesome. So it is actually saving the votes, and that works great. Now to see how this actually performs when you deploy it, or what it would feel like to make all of those requests while the page is being generated, I'm going to try to deploy this. So I'm going to git add this, git commit -m, get vote type from URL and save votes. And we're going to now try to deploy this on Vercel. Because Vercel is a great choice for NextJS projects because they have really good integration. And we're gonna see basically what happens. I don't want to override anything, but I basically want to see whether these vote pages are going to load fast enough for this approach to be worth continuing with. Because where we're at now is that I think the page is going to be very slow to load, but it's going to have the benefit of always saving the vote before the page is loaded. So, oh, nice. What is the problem? Why is this not working? Let's see. What's breaking? Module not found. Can't resolve styled components. Okay. So install styled components. Git grep styled components. Import styled from styled components. Okay. Yarn add styled components. And this is something that we're going to get rid of soon because I don't like using styled components directly anymore. I like to do everything with Team UI. But for now, let's just get this. We're focusing on Next.js versus Gatsby right now. So we'll see how that works. Come on, computer. So it's deploying the new Next.js build to Vercel. And then we're going to try what... No, it's still not deployed. What is wrong this time? Maybe I should run a build locally first. Let's see. Can't resolve final. Dude, all of this stuff should be in package.json. React final form, styled components, yarn add final form. It's interesting that how is this working locally if it's not working when you deploy? That's weird. Oh, unless it's going up and seeing stuff in my other node modules directories. That could explain it. Okay, let's see if it works now. Pa, 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 pa. Come on, computer, you got this. You can do it. You can do this, computer. Or well, I guess this, in this case, it's not my computer being slow, it's the Vercel deployment stuff being slow. Okay, so we've got this. We can now go to this same URL, but on Vercel's public domain path thing. So we go here, and now we're going to see how long it takes to get data back. And remember, we are using server-side generation, which means that this being slower means this is slower. I don't know where I was going with that, but basically this is pretty, it's not that bad, but it is pretty slow. See, it takes, because we're using server-side generation, it takes 2 seconds to load the page. Now, once the page is loaded, you don't need follow-up requests. You see the vote got saved, and we didn't need to make any requests on the user side, or on the browser side. There were no requests being made because everything just works. But this initial 2-second load is a problem. See, if I swap this for the Netlify one, SparkJoy netlify.app, we're going to try the same thing, but with the Gatsby version. Let's see what the Gatsby version is going to look like. So the Gatsby version here. Oh, right. Okay, we can try. Okay, let's try. It's because I have different development and production databases. So I'm gonna try it like this then. We're going to check the production version, and let's see how fast that loads. So we're comparing Gatsby's completely static page with the NextJS server-side generated page. You see this loaded faster. But so here we have 2 kilobytes of data with it took 2 seconds to do that because we were doing stuff on demand, like fetching data for the page and fetching and saving the vote that you made. Whereas here, the initial load takes 28 milliseconds. And then in XHR, we should have made requests in the XHR, like when the page was loaded. But we didn't. That's weird. Okay, let's try that again. So, SparkJoy, instance of Joy. Where did the vote get saved? Yeah, okay, try to authorize me. That's unnecessary. Where did we save the actual vote? There's no XHR request being made, which is weird. But it takes 21 milliseconds to load the page instead of 2 seconds. Pam, pam, pam. The plot thickens. But it is weird that it never actually saved the vote. At least doesn't look like it did. So maybe that's why maybe that's where the bug is. Well, that was an interesting discovery. Okay, so on that interesting discovery, I'm going to stop this. There's going to be a write-up about it, about today's episode on my blog. either today or tomorrow. And yeah, thanks everyone for watching. If you're subscribed to my mailing list, there's going to be some interesting bundle stuff going on over the next week and a half because of the whole Black Friday thing. But I think it was really interesting that we found the performance difference, like a measurable performance difference between static generation and server-side props, because I think that's what a lot of people are underestimating when it comes to moving to Next.js and raving on the internet about how cool it is that you can that you have faster deploys than you do with Gatsby. That's where the difference shows up. So thanks everyone for watching. I will see you again on Wednesday. Bye.